When Solomon attended his high school career fair, nobody asked him what he wanted to do. They didn't give him an assessment of his gifts and talents and options for future career paths. He didn't take one of those personality tests to find out if he was an extrovert or introvert. He didn't learn how to create a resume or choose references. The decision had already been made. He was going into the family business. And it was a big responsibility and a heavy burden on his shoulders. So when the time came for David to give him his final words of advice, he was all ears, because David had been king for 40 years. And there are few things in this life that we do for 40 years. It's rare to do the same job in the same place for 4 decades. So surely David had advice to share. So Solomon is sitting on the edge of his seat. But David's advice is rather simple. Be strong. Be courageous. Walk in the ways of God. Now, surely, after 40 years as king, with all the responsibilities and challenges that David had faced, he had more to say than walk in the ways of God. That perhaps this fell short of Solomon's expectations, because he had this long list of questions. What do I do if there's a drought or a famine? Who do I turn to if people complain or they rebel? What happens if there's a threat to Israel from the outside? And what happens if there's a threat to Israel from the inside and somebody else wants the throne? The questions were endless. And even though it might have fallen short of Solomon's hopes and expectations, he still turned to God for help. And when Solomon did, he did the unexpected. He did not ask for a long life or protection. He did not ask for riches or wealth. He did not ask God to destroy his enemies or more power and influence, all of which would have addressed major concerns. Instead, Solomon asked for discernment, the ability to see the difference between good and evil. And over the course of a lifetime, there are few things more valuable than wisdom. Wisdom teaches us how to care for our loved ones well. Wisdom leads us to protect the vulnerable around us. Wisdom guides us to deal with those circumstances that are outside of our control, and we all have plenty of those. That wisdom is an understated gift and an invaluable practice, and it recognizes what we do not know. Discernment is not about what we know, it's about what we do not know. And we discover what we do not know in the bread of life. like manna coming down from heaven, sustaining the people of God as they're wandering through the wilderness. They do not know where they are going or how they are going to get there. And Jesus says, I am the living bread. Whoever eats of this bread will live forever, and the bread that I give for the life of the world is my flesh. Now, from the very beginning, this caused all kinds of debates. How can Jesus give us flesh to eat? The early church was accused of many things. People accused the early church of atheism because they didn't believe in the gods of the Roman Empire. And they even accused the early church of cannibalism, confusing literal and figurative language. That when Jesus said, I am a door, he didn't literally mean he was a door. And when Jesus said, I am living bread, he meant that my ways can sustain you, especially when you do not know what to do. But when wisdom is based on things like the last shall be first and the humble will be exalted, it does not always make sense. That discernment does not lead us to answers. It leads us to wisdom. And there is a slight difference between the two. It's where we find Solomon, that when we ask for long life, protection, riches, or wealth, those are answers. When we seek the destruction of our enemies or greater power and influence, those are answers. But wisdom is different. Wisdom relies on what we do not know. We do not rely on ourselves, but on the guiding presence of God. But there are days when that does not feel like enough, where I wish I had more answers, that I had the ability to fly or super strength or the ability to heal. Because wisdom's not always straightforward. That if we do this, that will happen. It's not like studying for a test when the teacher hands out a study guide. Oh, do I love study guides. All you have to do is learn the information on the study guide, and there are no surprises on the test. But as we all know, life is full of the unexpected, and it can get rather confusing very fast. There are bad things that look like good things. And there are good things that look like bad things. And there are moments when action disguises itself as wisdom, but as it turns out, it's wise to wait. But then there are moments when waiting disguises itself as wisdom, but it's wise to act. It's why David could not tell Solomon more than he did. Walk in the ways of God. When Lisa Nichols Hickman was about to graduate from seminary, she faced a dilemma, a decision, a crossroads, unsure of which direction to go. So she sought advice from her pastor. And the pastor, knowing her quite well, suggested that she spend some time between patience and fortitude, which are the names of the lions outside the New York Public Library. A place dear to her where she spent countless hours, especially when she was discerning her sense of call, whether she should apply to seminary, something she never saw herself doing, that she would spend hours walking up and down those aisles of books, praying and deliberating. And now she needed to spend time between patience and fortitude again. Apparently, in the Great Depression, Mayor Fiorelli LaGuardia renamed the lions Patience and Fortitude, which are seemingly opposites, having nothing in common. But as it turns out, they work well together to create wisdom. As the mayor said, we need to read between the lions. That we need to read between the lines of patience and fortitude. Not standing still, but not rushing forward. Seeking fortitude while practicing patience. That those are the bookends of wisdom. I did not know this, but a trail horse that ascends a mountain trail to the peak and then descends back down drags its hind legs on the way back down. I had ridden a horse before, at summer camp, that trail that goes around the edge of the campground. But watching a horse ride up to the top of a mountain and back down, navigating that steep, uneven terrain is quite impressive. They are strong and dependable, and if you take care of your horse will take care of you. But oftentimes, when we talk about dragging our feet, it's not a good thing. That we can't make a decision that we're supposed to be able to make, or we are frozen in fear, sadness, anger, frustration, that we do not know what to do. But as the horse comes down the mountain, it cannot see its hind legs. So it carefully and deliberately drags its back hooves along the ground, feeling its way, making sure it is solid footing before taking the next step. And if you are riding the horse, it is greatly appreciated. There are times in our lives when our vision is limited, that we cannot see what is around the next corner, and it might terrify us. There are times when it feels as if we are dragging our feet. But perhaps we can simply immerse ourselves in the practice of discernment, reading between the lines of patience and fortitude. Because Jesus is living bread. And bread is not a meal for a special occasion. It's not for a rare event. It's what we eat each and every day. Recognizing what we do not know and leaning into the ways of Jesus. Amen.